I'm Todd Waterman. I live about 4 miles that way. Uh, Several years ago, I was fixing to buy a house in Knoxville, and I asked the air pollution guy in Knoxville where I should avoid buying a house, and he said, just get a long ways from the 3 coal plants. And guess what? Now I'm 4 miles from the only one that's still operating. Fortunately, it's scrubbed now. None of them were back then. I grew up in Knoxville in a neighborhood that had lots and lots of woods. Everybody had woods all over the place. And I would spend my days, whenever I wasn't in school, walking through the woods and along the river, along the Tennessee River. We were right near the river, with my dog Sweetie Pie. and I just fell in love with the land and with nature, and I've been that way ever since. I call myself a babble rouser. I come from a long line of publicists and advertisers and all sorts of people like that, audio visuals folks, and I never wanted to do that stuff because I didn't want to be selling anything that I didn't think people really needed. But I'll tell you something that everybody in the world needs, and every generation to come needs from us, and that's climate mitigation. We need that worse than anything. I mean, the CO2 that this plant pumps out and other plants like it, that the gas plants that TVA wants to replace them with will pump out, is going to be there for centuries. And it's going to make our climate worse and worse and worse. A plant like this statistically killed hundreds of people. We just don't know which ones they were. We can't see their faces. If we could have seen their faces as they and their families suffered, these coal plants would have been shut down long, long ago. So we know better, and we can do better now. We have clean, renewable energy that's cheaper than coal, cheaper even than the gas that TVA wants to replace their power with. To me, that seems pretty crazy, because why would you want to pay for a new gas plant that's going to have to be shut down almost immediately to meet any climate goals, national or international, and then replace it with solar and storage when you can just build the solar and storage in the first place a lot cheaper without polluting the air and without pumping more CO2 into the atmosphere. In Appalachia, coal's been a big part of the economy here for a long time. Here in Anderson County, we had coal mines until pretty recently. The Cumberland Mountains down here are full of them. Those are all shut down now because the coal's not economic to mine. All the good coal is long gone. When we started organizing around the closure of this plant's going to shut down in 2023. And TVA wants to leave this wet ash pond in place. They want to leave that fly ash stack over there that's been blowing into the kids' playground for years and blowing all over the community. The people were complaining a few years ago about it. It was all over the jungle gyms and the slides. The kids their hands were dirty with coal ash. This mountain lake here is just gorgeous. We drive by it all the time. I always love that drive. The Cumberland Mountains are in the background there, reflected in the lake. I mean, it's amazing. This is Hall Ridge Park, which is a mecca for mountain bikers and hikers. I mean, this whole thing is just laced with beautiful trails. And then just down this way is Melton Lake Park, which is the City of Oak Ridge's park. And that's wonderful too. There's a proposal now to make several miles down that way a blue way now, so that it would be protected as a waterway. So in contrast to that, look at this. Look at this. This shoreline is really low and accessible, people could come in here and do all sorts of wonderful things. This Claxton community right around there, because the coal ash is so toxic, they used to have to wipe the soot off everything every single day. This community right around the coal plant, these aren't wealthy folks. They've suffered and they're still suffering. Think what would happen to their property values if all this were gone and this were beautiful. I mean, look down here. All the coal combustion residuals, gypsum, bottom ash, everything else, all down through there. That's jutting out way into the lake, and the stilling ash pond, which is filled with wet fly ash, the stuff that inundated Kingston after the Kingston spill, it's filled with that still. And it's sticking right down to the middle of our drinking water reservoir. And like my scientist friend told me, the good news is that that pond is going to be a lot less toxic in the future. The bad news is that's because more and more of the toxins will have leaked into the lake and our drinking water. You can see right down there, there's a little white building just past that point where the wet ash pond is. That's the intake for the West Knox utility drinking water. There's 60 or 70,000 people that drink that water. There are another 50 or 60,000 that drink from an intake for the Hallsdale-Powell water system, which is right up Bull Run Creek. An awful lot of people are drinking out of this reservoir, and we don't want it to be contaminated with coal ash in the future. Just imagine what it would be like if this plant was gone and all this was restored to a natural shoreline. The wet ash and everything else was cleared out of there. It has to be cleared out because it's toxic as hell. Sooner or later, it's going to end up in our drinking water. So, but imagine what this community could be. They can't do anything on top of coal ash if it's left in place. If it's not gotten out of here, then they can't do much to really develop this. Including if what they decided to do was sell it to some industry. Yeah, it looks like, you can see just a little bit of smoke coming out of the scrubber there. So I expect they're fixing to fire this thing up. Usually you can tell when they're going to fire it up because you see all this black smoke coming out from right in front of this building where the old stack is. You see all this black smoke coming out, and that's the oil that they're burning to get everything heated up and primed. There you can hear the coal trains over there moving right now. That's a lot of coal going into that plant. And this plant right here, it very seldom runs anymore, but just running about 30% of the time, it doesn't even run that much anymore, fortunately, it was still putting 2,700,000 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. I love this community. I'm so impressed with my community, so proud of my community. This community has come together in a way that few communities do. And there's a unique mix of people here. We have environmentalists like me, and we also have all these folks that live right next to this plant and have been putting up with it forever. And we have Kingston survivors. We have these scientists and engineers over at RNL, some of which are the top experts in the kind of water contamination issues that we're dealing with right here, and the air pollution issues. Oak Ridge City government, the Anderson County commissioners, we have everybody on this. And we have the press. The press is all over it, and they bring a huge megaphone, so everybody knows what's going on here and at Kingston. We have Kingston coal ash workers who are suffering incurable diseases now. Over 50 of them have already died, so they're involved with us, and their wives are just they are on fire. I mean, they are going to be heard. And TVA hates that, of course, as they should. I mean, they're not taking care of those damn workers. You know, they're just pretending like it's not their fault, even though they hired the engineering company that cleaned up that coal ash, knowing that they had a terrible record for not protecting their workers. TVA wanted to put in a new fly ash landfill right in the middle of this populated area, bounded by 3 different subdivisions. They wanted to stick it right there so that ash would have been blowing all through those communities. And those aren't very wealthy communities, so I guess they figured they could get away with that. But boy, were they in for a surprise when this community got fired up. Because we started showing up for intergovernmental committee meetings, Anderson County Commission meetings. We showed up for TDEC hearings. We showed up for the commission's hearings. And before long, TDEC was telling TVA that they needed to go back and revisit and re-justify that permit, because they'd applied for that permit justifying it before they decided to shut down that plant in 2023. So it didn't make any sense anymore. So they told TVA to go back to the drawing board, and the next thing TVA dropped the whole proposal. So that was a big win. So now that we know that we can win, the big battle is ahead, and that's, are we going to get the community that we deserve? Are we going to get this plant gone, all this decontaminated, all the coal ash toxins out of here, stored someplace away from the water, away from people, high and dry and lined, as they should be? The Reclaim Act would do wonderful things for Anderson County, where I live, and for any community where there are abandoned coal mines, because there's a huge fund, I think it's $1.4 billion, that's waiting to be spent on cleaning up those old sites and detoxifying them. They're sitting out in the middle of these communities now. You know, they're dangerous. You know, the kids are in trouble if they go there and play. And it would get rid of those with the stipulation that all those grants to do that money has to be tied to building the economy in that community. You can put in a park, you can put in a wind farm or solar farm, but it would go to these mostly really down and out communities. Some of these people are so poor that they can't afford to leave. They're stuck there. And those are the people that need the help the worst. What I foresee, if this is done right, and that's if we keep showing up as a community and our government and everybody is behind us, if this plant is gone, if this section of Melton Lake is as gorgeous as all the rest of it is, as these parks are right here. I mean, look at this. Look at these wildflowers. I mean, this lake. I mean, it's gorgeous. And this isn't up to me. This is up to the community. But what I would love is to see this made some kind of a park right here, where people can come down to the river, and just imagine what that would do for the property values here in Claxton. We're a pretty strong community, and that we're not going to take anything off of anybody, that we're demanding to be treated right. And I think that's what's going to happen, because I believe in this community. I mean, this is just an amazing community, and I think we're going to do that. What we need to do is show up for meetings and demand what we want, and that's exactly what we're doing, and we're going to keep doing it. So our policymakers need to understand that. The biggest contribution we can possibly make right now is to be climate activists, because climate change is irreversible, and it's probably the worst problem that humans have ever faced that's readily soluble, easily soluble. I mean, for a fraction of gross national product, we could fix that. gross world product, we can fix that. It's easy. We know how to do it. All that we need is the will.